Hey guys, welcome to Star Wars Timeline. Today is Friday, and I'm continuing to watch and review Star Wars The Droids show. It's something that my fans have personally recommended to take a look. I wasn't planning on watching this show, but right now I'm on episode 7, The Revenge of Kybo Ren, and I gotta say I'm enjoying it so far. Now, before we start talking about this episode, please be warned. I'm gonna talk about characters, storyline, and so forth. If you don't want any spoilers, please turn away now, go watch the episode, and then come back and you'll get to share my thoughts. And I would like to hear back from you. Maybe you'll leave a comment down below what you personally thought of this episode. Anyway, let's get on with it. We begin this episode with R2-D2 and C-3PO attending a peace treaty. There's this grand meeting between two clans, two peoples. We get King Julpa from previous episodes, and he's met by Lord Toda, and together they're trying to negotiate this peace. And right away, immediately, I thought of politics from the prequels. Remember, we had Gungans, and then we had Princess Padme, and they're kind of like vying for power and trying to figure out, hey, who's this planet really belongs to? And Gungans felt very territorial and secluded. So that gave me automatically some feelings from the prequel era. I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. The politics have been done in Star Wars before. And here we meet King Toda's children. We meet Kobe, the young boy, and his sister Garen. And right away from the start of the episode, we are shown that this Princess Garen is very special to King Julpa. He's obviously much younger of the two kings, and it seems like they're sharing some kind of a romantic feelings for each other, or maybe they already have a relationship. And I thought that was pretty interesting, and it was very important to set up what the stakes are going to be in this episode by showing us, hey, here is a princess, and she's important to one of our heroes. So that was cool. And as the treaty commences, things go wrong. The two kings are kind of like sizing each other up, and they're saying like, hey, look, why should I listen to you? You're coming to me for help now. And King Koba is not very quick or very trusting. And as they're quarreling, Kybo Ren actually gets rescued from prison from this planet by his first mate, Jin Oba. He actually breaks into the cell. He's like, hey, I came back for you. Let's escape. In the meantime, the droids, with their crazy antics, like I really enjoyed how they tried to deliver this food for this kind of like occasion or banquet, and they crashed the whole thing, the whole tray. But in the long run, it actually serves its purpose because, you know, everybody's laughing and it relieves the stress. And I'm like, oh man, okay, you know, these guys are not going to be at each other's throats. They're going to come to some sort of understanding because the droids were there, and with their silliness, they were able to, you know, discharge this very tense moment. Anyway, Kybo Ren and his first mate, they're fleeing. And as they're fleeing, the princess tries to stop them. She was able to kind of handle his henchmen. We know also from the early in the episode that she's quite capable. She knows what she's doing. She can handle herself in the rough spot. But still, she's overpowered, and Kybo Ren grabs her. He takes this opportunity, and he snatches her away. Again, I really enjoyed the fact that from the beginning of the episode, the writers are knowing what they're doing. You know, it's understandable the episode is for younger children, but we need to cheer for our heroes, and we need to put them through trying periods and trouble. And that's what happens here. The princess is kidnapped. Not a good situation. Something needs to happen to get it resolved. Obviously, our friends John and Jess and the droids and the kings, they all make rescue plans, while R2-D2 and C-3PO do something really, really odd and really cool. I found it was a really funny moment how they go into the prison cell, and there is one of the pirates that they captured in the early episode who is really a dullard. He's stupid. He doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't even have speech that anybody else can understand. He's like gibbering in his own language or whatever. And anyway, C-3PO goes in, and he says, oh man, you know, this interrogator is going to come in. I don't know what to do. You better tell him the name of the planet where they took the princess. And then R2-D2 comes in with all these extensions and things that he has like in his body. I just thought it was a funny moment. It was very charming. And the droids are actually helping out. There's never been an episode in the show where the droids are kind of like set aside and, you know, the characters take over the episode or the story. The heroes of the show are always C-3PO and R2-D2, and in this episode, we are once again shown they're quite capable, and they're able to get this important information out of this guy. So I thought it was very effective and very funny. Now, where are we at? We also find out that Jess is taken to the swamp moon of Bogden. And right away, when they called out the name of the planet, it instantly made me recall something from Star Wars Legends, from the comic books during the Dark Horse era, and I'll bring it up a little later. But I thought, just like certain elements in previous episodes, which clearly make it into Phantom Menace and other prequels, like the General Grievous's motorcycle, like a wheel. Like, okay, that's interesting. And then the announcer that we see during the pod racing in the movie Phantom Menace, we kind of see those twins in the show as well. So, wow, there's a lot of parallels and sort of Easter eggs, even though it happens way, way before the prequels, the kind of ideas that George Lucas incorporated. And here, when they say, obviously, Kylo Ren, this is a very, very similar name. And then Bogden, I was like, oh man, it's one of the moons of Tython, a very, very important planet to the lore of Star Wars. And they're sort of like reusing that name from an earlier Star Wars show. I thought it was pretty cool. Anyway, she's taken to this planet. And now we're back at this swamp base, which is like a pirate base. And Kybo Ren is now making demands. He says, look, unless you release all of my men, you're not getting your princess back. And the kings are now starting to make plans. And of course, John and Jess and the droids, they take the A-Wings to the moon. But I really liked that they sort of let you know that the King Julpa and Lord Toda are trying to do something about it, but it's not clear what yet. And the storytellers were very effective to kind of like keep the tension there between the two. And you don't really know, like, okay, are they playing to the cameras to Kybo Ren and kind of like showing him they're not really united in their cause and their mission to rescue the princess? Or is there some kind of ulterior motive? What are they doing? Are they trying to distract him with something else? So that was pretty effective too. And the plot twist at the end was quite rewarding and it worked really well. Once again, Garen, the princess, she's able to make her own escape. Again, I like that. They show that the women, even in this children-oriented cartoon show, they're resourceful, they're capable, but at the same time, they still need friends and they need to depend on others. Of course, in the meantime, our friends, they take the droids, they kind of split apart into two teams, and they're searching through the base for different, cells. They're looking for the princess. Kybo Ren is angry. He's like, hey, you're gonna try to attack my base? I have new demands now. I'm gonna take, all my men back, plus you gotta deliver King Julpa. Because he's kind of seeing that the kings are not agreeing on screen. When they're talking to each other, he's like, I want him as well now. Like, you're trying to attack me? That's not gonna run. So once again, the stakes are raised, and you really try to hope for the best for this episode. I'm always trying to put myself in the mind frame perspective of a kid. How would I watch the show if I was like 5 or 6 year old? You don't have that much foresight or kind of like try to detail everything and say, well, it's going to end up this way or that way. Kids that kind of follow storytelling in the moment. They don't jump ahead trying to solve the puzzle. Like, you follow along, and by the time the episode is over, you either like it as a kid or you don't. So I imagine watching it as a child, you probably are watching. It's like, oh man, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Are the kings going to become friends? Are they going to rescue the princess? What's coming next? So from the narrative standpoint, it's a pretty strong episode, and it really sets up the tension well. The rulers agree to new demands. They say, okay, I'm going to deliver King Julpa to you. He's of no use to me. I'm like, okay, something is up here. What's going on? He's willing to give away a member of his clan, of his people, even though they're on different sides. That's kind of unlikely. And also, C-3PO's arm gets severed, but he makes a light joke of it. He's like, hey, just a scratch. At first, I was like, hold on, it's a kid's show, and his hands gets like severed. But then he's a droid. He's not a human being, and I thought it just works, and it was another charming and cute moment. And now we get to the conclusion of the episode, where the old epic stuff happens and action ensues, when the kings arrive to the planet. And this is where they spring their trap. Just when Kybo Ren thought he outsmarted them, he defeated them, and he celebrates having his ship back, the door opens and a whole bunch of armed guards come out and they attack the whole base. And obviously they're able to overpower the evil Kybo Ren and take back the princess. And this is a moment where Jess leaves. She says her goodbye. She says, look, I have my freighter business. I got to go back to it. And it feels like Jan is the one that's going to miss her the most. He's like, wait, are you leaving? again, kind of like hinting at maybe they have some sort of friendship or romantic feelings for each other. And the episode ends on lesson of friendship, and like friends shouldn't argue and they always should come to an understanding and to support each other. So all in all, I liked this episode, and I enjoyed that once again it plays into that part of Kybo Ren and his pirates. It's an interesting theme, and I always like to watch it in animation, in live action. It's just something that we all romanticize and find very, very interesting for all of us, I think. So what were my biggest likes in this episode? First thing I mentioned was the swamp moon of Bogden. With the moment that they name dropped this planet, I'm like, hold on a second, it brings memories. And now I'd like to share with you what it was. There's a comic book back from the Dark Horse era called The Dawn of the Jedi, which talks about the earliest days of the pre-Jedi sect called the Jedi. Like, it's spelled a little bit differently. And they're on this planet of Tython, which is very strong in the Force, and it's surrounded by two moons. And one of them is called the moon of Bogon, which is practically spelled almost the same without the D in it. The planet of Bogan. There's a popular 5-issue miniseries called The Prisoner of Bogan. It's an excellent book by John Ostrander and Yandur Shema, and I highly, highly recommend you guys check it out. So, two different locations, but once again, both of them are actually exciting and very exotic. One is a swamp moon of pirates, and another one is a prison where one of these rogue Jedi was held in the comic book. So that was an interesting comparison, and it makes me think like, hey, are the Star Wars content creators actually looking back at all the legacy and history of Star Wars, what happened before, and trying to either pay homage to it with a simple name, just slightly changing a name and saying like, hey, we remember this was in the Droids show, and we're going to put this name in this comic book. That was pretty cool. For somebody like myself who reads a lot of Star Wars, it was a nice added bonus. I mentioned also the R2-D2 and C-3PO antics. They never fail to entertain me. In this episode, when they begin with like trying to deliver these trays of food as the service droids, brought me back to episode 6, the Jabba's palace, obviously, and on his barge when they're like bringing our friends to the Sarlacc pit with what the droids were doing, and you see the R2-D2 driving around with the tray trying to service drinks. I'm like, oh man, this is ripped straight from the movie, and they're trying to play into that scene once again. I really enjoyed it a lot. I liked that Garen was a resourceful princess. It's different time period of storytelling. It's a different time period for entertainment. It's the 80s, and this is the time where it's saying like, look, let's bring our female heroes up and also empower them. But it feels so much different from what's happening today, with like this cancel culture and people quarreling with each other, and some people feel offended, other people feel misrepresented, and it almost feels that sometimes you put a minority group or specific gender and you try to like really, really highlight them, but it doesn't feel genuine. It just feels like it just wants to appease somebody in modern audience and say like, by the way, we're gonna have a strong female character here too, but it doesn't play to the strength of the story particularly. That's what I'm trying to say. I mean, sometimes it's done very successfully. I thought both Wonder Woman films are excellent, especially part 1. I really, really enjoyed that, and they were quite balanced. You have a strong female lead that is not all powerful. Just like any human being, regardless what your gender is, regardless how successful you are in life, you need friends. You need to depend on people. You have your moments of weakness, confusion. You don't know how to step forward in life. You know how to make tough decisions. And you have people around you who love you and will support you. And it doesn't diminish your success in any way. And that's what I liked in this episode. You know, Princess Garen, she's powerful. She obviously can handle herself physically. She's also smart. She knows how to break out of prison. But at the same time, she also needs to rely on her friends. And I think that's the most important takeaway from this show and from this episode. It teaches children that we need to depend on one another. We are together in this. You know, life is tough. Sometimes you could have a crazy pirate snatch away your friend, and you got to work together to rescue them. I thought that the plot twist toward the end was quite effective. Again, it's a children's show. It's obviously not going to be Martin Scorsese with its like plot twist, you know, and different elements in the story. It's very, very simple, but it works well. Because in the beginning of the show, you see that the kings are quarreling. They're not agreeing. Their posturing is like, hey, this is my planet, or my clan is more important. I did this, I did that. But towards the end, they're able to resolve their differences and help out their friends, and everything ends up nicely for our friends. It's a happy ending. So that was pretty cool as well. And last but not least, I like the adventurous plot. I like these pirate themes, and I hope that the rest of the show, whatever episodes number I have to see, I know it's only one season, that it keeps exploring that adventurous territory that kids always enjoy. Because me as a kid growing up with like classic literature, my favorite story was Treasure Island. And it's something that you see back in this episode. It takes that classic romanticized theme that children always like, and they always like to dress as pirates, for Halloween and stuff. And this episode plays into that, and that makes the show wonderful, and it makes it Star Warsy, but at the same time something fresh, something different that we haven't quite seen before. Once again, we see these sort of pirates being introduced in live action, right? In Solo movie, when we see the attack on the train, and these pirates come along and they snatch the cargo. I'm like, dude, this is really, really cool. I hope we see more of that. I wouldn't even mind showing some species or faction in like live action Star Wars, because if we can have gunslingers like in the Mandalorian show, and Han Solo himself, he looks like a cowboy in space, we could have pirates as well. Why not? Why not take some popular themes that all of us enjoyed since childhood and reintroduce into the Star Wars and make it fun and interesting, and kind of like sci-fi / fantasy themes joined together, which Star Wars has always been known for. Anyway, guys, I enjoyed this episode. This show has been completely turning around for me. It's something that I wasn't even planning on watching. I was like, okay, I watched the Ewok live action movies. I enjoyed them a lot. Obviously, they're for a younger generation. I don't know if I could go to droids or Ewoks. Like, I don't know. It's probably too much for kids. But as a person who has been trained in animation and storytelling and the nuance, how you tell a story in the most simplest, basic forms that child could understand, but still give it a lot of hard and very interesting lesson, and not be preachy at the same time. And that's what the show is doing. It is Star Wars. It gives us the droids as the main heroes, and it does something that is quite different and very fantasy-oriented, and I enjoyed it a lot. Anyway, guys, I would like to hear back from you. What did you think of this show? What do you think of this episode? I particularly would like to hear from someone who grew up with it, because what was your first experience with it? I can't imagine watching this show as a kid. It obviously would make a whole world of difference, in experiencing it for the first time. Anyway, this is my time. My name is Benjamin. If you guys enjoyed this video, please consider supporting me. It would really mean a lot to me. Subscribe to my channel and hit that bell button so you could watch all of my future reviews on this show and other shows. I'm going to go to Ewoks next. And I'll see you guys next time.